welcome. You're watching Undercurrent, where you can find out what's been happening in the Perth community. I'm Lucy Marchant. Italy was recently hit by a devastating earthquake, which destroyed the small town of Amatrice. To help the town rebuild, Perth's Italian community held a fundraiser, and Undercurrent reporter Elise went along.
Tonight I am at the Perth Town Hall, where a fundraiser is being held for the victims of the recent 6.2 magnitude earthquake in Italy.
For all the support and solidarity provided by the city of Perth. The earthquake hit central Italy on the 9th of August 24. The quake struck just after 3:30 a.m.
There's fortunate people at 3:32 in the morning been hit by a 6-degree earthquake. Overnight, I couldn't sleep at night, so I said, I'm going to give a call to Giuseppe tomorrow and from Perugino, and I said, what are we going to do? He said, we're going to do something. Ring up Tony Fini, the chair of the committee, and say, yep, I'll be there tomorrow morning, we all have a coffee. And he brought another dozen of people together. They formed the committee within a couple of hours, and within 10 days, we've been very active, and we put a lot of energy and effort to get people tonight, even though there is a semi-final of the football. So we got a great number, 220 people are attending, and lots of people, lots more, they paid the table, but they couldn't attend. So we're very fortunate, and a lot of people really opened up their heart to help.
And can you tell us about the food you're serving tonight?
Well, yes, the food is very interesting. The great chef Giuseppe is back in the kitchen, working hard. We've got an amazing selection of finger foods. The homemade pasta, one of the pasta, cappelletti, we had to do with a matriciana sauce. Amatrice has been hit the hardest by the earthquake, with the pancetta, the tomato and the onion.
Look, I have personally been to Ascoli Piceno, which is the major city that has some of the tremors and where the actual funerals occurred. The tragedy here, of course, is that the Amatriciana was having the actual what they call a get-together to enjoy the actual dish that comes from that area, from that town. And of course they all got caught in the dreadful earthquake, and very tragic, a lot of the people there lost their lives. The reason for this event, of course, is to gather all these fantastic people here this evening to donate money towards the event. It is our hope that we will raise in the vicinity of $50,000. We're hoping that some of the funds here, or most of the funds here tonight, will be directed towards that.
How is the City of Perth involved in this event?
Well, the City of Perth has been very pleased to be able to offer the use of the Town Hall this evening at no charge, and we also unanimously agreed at the council meeting last week to give a $10,000 donation to the earthquake appeal.
And what does this event mean for you?
This event has a lot of meanings for us. I mean, there are so many Italians that have been an integral part of building the city and are very important to the City of Perth. We also have a sister city in Italy, and although that city has not directly been affected on this occasion, it is very close to the region where these earthquakes have struck. So for many reasons, it is a very important thing for us to be able to support and send our love to all of those who have been affected. Well, I think we need to try and support as much as we can, and it's not easy at these times. I think we're in a period now where many people are finding it difficult, but for those who can afford to support an event like this, as you can see, they're enjoying themselves, they're getting a beautiful meal, and at the same time they're really giving something very special, which cumulatively will mean a lot to the people in Italy.
Well, I'd just love to thank personally and on behalf of the committee every supporter, and they know, even though if they're not present tonight, they really made this night happen, and we're going to definitely act immediate action to deliver the money raised to the communities in need for kids, mothers, parents, and old people. First, we believe that we're going to rebuild the faith on people, and then we can help to rebuild their cities and their towns.
Tonight has certainly been one to remember and has brought the Perth Italian community together for a worthy cause. I'm Elise Van Aken for Undercurrent.
Young refugees and migrants were invited to attend a resettlement workshop this week to help them integrate into their new Australian life. Angela Albuquerque.
I'm in Leederville at the Leederville TAFE for the National Youth Settlement Framework Workshop. It's put on by the Multicultural Youth Advocacy Network, and it's designed to assist young refugees and migrants who come into Australia to settle more effectively.
I'm Nadine Liddy and I'm the National Coordinator for Mayan Australia, which is the Multicultural Youth Advocacy Network. So this is 2-day training on the National Youth Settlement Framework. The framework is the first of its kind in Australia, so it's quite a milestone in youth settlement policy and programming. The framework is a practical and conceptual guide for supporting good practice with young people from refugee and migrant backgrounds. It has a range of practical tools, and that's what we're exploring in the day and a half or the 2-day training. So we're moving through the framework, learning about the framework, and in particular looking at what the framework means. We're all here today with people working with young people from refugee and migrant backgrounds in the education setting. So there's a couple of people from intensive English language centres. There's a few people from the settlement sector, so those who deliver sort of early on arrival support. There's a few people from the health sector and a couple of people from the broader youth sector. So a cross-section of people. Young people experience the settlement journey different to adults, and they also experience adolescence in ways that are different or distinct from Australian-born young people. So some of those factors are leaving their country behind, not having a choice in that, having to learn a new language in Australia, having to support their family in ways that they may not have done before. The refugee and migration experience puts a lot of pressure on families. They're also developing new peer relationships in a whole new culture. And in terms of the particular unique needs, they're negotiating the developmental tasks of adolescence with all those other factors to negotiate. But they're doing that without immediate family support. And many of them will carry some burden of responsibility for supporting family left behind. So there's often a focus on earning money.
So what happens with the adolescent who is then coming from their country to a new country?
They would come to Australia and receive some initial support through settlement organisations, and that support is often around accommodation, enrolling them in school or in higher education, accessing medical care or health care, depending on what that is, and also briefing them a little bit on how the employment system works in Australia.
So for an adolescent that comes and is separated from their family, are there any long-term issues?
For those who come on their own, it can be particularly challenging. Often feel a really deep sense of grief and loss, and that separation from family can also impact on mental health. But I think that group of young people are also really highly resilient. They're very keen to contribute to the Australian society. They're very keen to educate themselves and get employment and make a formal contribution to Australian society.
What would you say to the different migrant groups in Perth? How can they contribute?
What we would say to young people is, seek the support that you need. We do a whole range of sector development activities, including training with services to make sure that services are inclusive and responsive. So let's hope that part of the picture happens well, and we would say to young people to seek the support that you need and, really build on strengths. This group of young people come with a whole range of strengths, and I think it's important not to lose sight of that. and that it does get easier over time. And again, it's finding the supports that they need, whether that's peers or whether that's within services, more formal welfare or social services.
And do you think Perth is ready for a new lot of cultural input?
Yeah, I do think Perth is ready. Yeah, I think Perth is a reasonably small sector in terms of the youth and settlement sectors, but I think there's a lot of good collaboration that happens across services, which is really important to make sure that young people don't fall through the gaps.
I'm Angela Albuquerque for Undercurrent.
Medicinal marijuana will be legalised in Australia from this November. Your thoughts on medicinal marijuana? Let's find out.
Debauchery, violence, murder, suicide, and the ultimate end of the marijuana addict. Hopeless insanity. See this important pill now, before it is too late.
It's been heavily debated whether marijuana should be legalised and used for medicinal purposes. Today we're hitting the streets of Perth to hear what people have to say about it.
There was a whole bunch of reasons why it was made illegal in the first place, and those reasons aren't really legitimate anymore.
Why not? As long as it's helping people, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really any reason not to. Like, most people agree with legalisation, I think, now, or at least most young people.
If something's working and can be effective and can help reduce symptoms, then yeah, I think it's definitely a goer.
I don't have a problem with it if it relieves people's suffering, like people with epilepsy or people dying of cancer or trying to deal with treatment.
I think if people are in pain and suffer and there's something that can relieve that, it's a good thing. As long as it's controlled and given in a controlled environment, yes, I'm totally for that. It can only help people.
I've seen a lot of documentaries on it, and I can actually see that for medicinal purposes, it's something that should really, a lot more investigation needs to be done, because I think it can be a great thing.
Perhaps you think maybe more research or more information, raising the pros and cons?
Yeah, definitely think it would be a good thing if they got more trials and stuff done and people to see what actual good effects it can do.
I think there's not enough research on medicinal marijuana opposed to how much research has been put in tobacco. And quite frankly, I think tobacco should be illegal.
Yeah, exactly. That's still illegal, and we know that kills you. It's the only thing that if used by the directions on the packet, it will kill you.
Do you think marijuana is safer than alcohol or perhaps tobacco?
It's technically safer, yeah. It's way less addictive, I think, than alcohol and cigarettes. I mean, cigarettes there's not really any holistic sort of or beneficial purpose to it. It's just purely addiction. It's definitely demonised a lot more than those two illegal substances, even though they're both drugs anyway.
Perhaps those things should be illegal, and what are your thoughts about marijuana being legalised?
Well, it's legal in Uruguay, it's legal in Washington State, Oregon, I think, and Colorado. So if it's legal in some parts of the world and not others, it's a bit strange. Like, you look at all the people that die from car crashes that are contributed to alcohol, you compare that to the amount of people who maybe get stoned. I mean, you shouldn't drive, but alcohol is far worse. Alcohol and smoking tobacco, far worse.
Bas Tedros for Undercurrent.
Make sure you stay with us for more Undercurrent after a short break. Welcome back to Undercurrent. Kings Park is looking beautiful at the moment as the wildflowers are starting to bloom. This week I went on a guided walk tour to find out more about the Botanic Garden. The Kings Park Festival is in full swing at the moment to celebrate the wildflowers that appear at this time of year. And today we came to Kings Park to experience one of the free walking tours to find out more about the beautiful flora and fauna that this park has to offer.
My name's Liz and I'm a volunteer guide here, and I'd like you to welcome you to Kings Park today and to the walk that we're going to do. So the walk will take us into the Botanic Garden. This is the map of the whole of Kings Park. All the green areas are the developed areas. Plan the Botanic Gardens, the lawns, playgrounds, and all the lighter area is bushland. So the whole of Kings Park covers about 1,000 acres or about 400 hectares, and it's one of the biggest inner city parks in the world. So we're very privileged and to have this park. We're just going to enjoy the flowers and all the colour that we're so lucky to have at the moment. I'm just stopping at the garden bed here, which represents flowers from the southwest of Western Australia. You've got these beautiful cotton heads or conostylus with the yellow flower. It's a close relative of the kangaroo paw. The kangaroo paw just here. The conostylus is great in the garden because it has extensive roots and it holds sand well. And we're very sandy soils here, especially in Perth. Now, our botanic garden, a lot of it's arranged in regions of the state, and we'll see that as we go through. So this next garden bed is representing the Mulga region. So we're a bit further north, although some of the regions overlap a bit, the Mulga region. So we're getting hotter and drier and more arid. Now, Mulga, as well as being the word that describes the region, is also a word that describes the plant. So these plants here are Mulga, and Mulga are acacia or wattles. Now, these are not in flower at the moment, but you can see the pods, the pea pods. And acacias or wattles are all part of that bigger pea family, Fabaceae. Honey ants were a delicacy that were found underground under the mulgas. Aboriginal people would dig, and it was quite ants filled with honey sac that were a delicacy.
We were just sitting having a coffee and I noticed that there were some guided walks around the Botanic Gardens, and I thought that would be a really useful way as an introduction to the plant life here.
What are you thinking about the guided tour so far?
Excellent, and she's so knowledgeable, she really is.
I'm really interesting that she's explaining why the plants are like they are and how that helps their survival in the conditions here.
So you've learned a lot?
We've learned an awful lot, yes. I found out that tea trees are not what I thought they were. Not PG tips.
Now, just take a leaf each and can you pull one off and give it a crush in your fingers and have a smell. Can you smell that? And what does it smell like to you? Hand cream? Eucalyptus? Well, it's this is the West Australian peppermint, and it's in the same family as eucalypt, so in the Myrtaceae or myrtle family. And what they all have in, one of the things they all have in common is the fact that there's aromatic oils in the leaves. I love the enthusiasm that visitors bring to visiting Kings Park, and I find that whether people from overseas, especially overseas visitors, are often entranced by the difference in the flora here compared to, say, the UK or Europe, for example. And also visitors from the eastern states are pretty blown away by the beautiful plants that are unique to Western Australia, although they can often now buy in their nurseries back home and try to grow as well. It's particularly busy at the moment. September is the perfect month to come. The gardens are absolutely splendid. They're just a riot of colour. And the weather is pretty perfect at the moment too. It's not too hot and not too cold either. Today we've got a perfect day to be in the park.
We've had a beautiful day at Kings Park. The sun is shining, the flowers are blooming, and the people are out. Lucy Marchant for Undercurrent. This week, Fluoride Free WA presented a petition and held a protest against the fluoridation of water. Michael So with the report.
For 50 years, fluoridation of water has been allowed in Western Australia, and people have been calling for it to come to an end following the release of a report by the Department of Health that it is good for our teeth.
I'm representing 8,000 West Australians today who have signed a petition asking for Parliament to review the legislation that forces medication on them every single day through their drinking water supply, and it has not been looked at for 50 years. And we're calling on Parliament today to review this legislation, to make sure we're looking at it from a holistic perspective like the rest of the world does. Most of the rest of the world does not fluoridate their drinking water, and their teeth are better than ours in most cases. And that's because putting fluoride in people's drinking water does not solve dental decay. Education and access to dental services solves dental decay. And that's what we need to be focusing our efforts on, not literally flushing taxpayers' money down the drain.
How do you think fluoridation would impact families?
Well, parents aren't being told that American Dental Association warns parents of bottle-fed babies not to use fluoridated water in their drinking water because they're being overexposed. And parents of Australia, WA, just aren't being told that. So bottle-fed babies are being overexposed, and there's plenty of science saying that it reduces IQ. So it's very unethical.
We're not so much focused on the no good or not. That is a minuscule percentage. What we're focused on is a potential risk to members of our community. You cannot put medication in the drinking water for everybody in this state to drink and the hope that no one will have an adverse reaction, will have an adverse effect. There are plenty of studies. Harvard University 3 years ago did a study which showed that water fluoridation, areas where there was fluoride in the water, children had lower IQs than in areas where they didn't. Is that a risk we want to take in this state?
I'm here because I'm against this mass medication. They're using a non-natural poison because fluoride itself is a natural poison. And in many countries they're taking out of the water like India or China because it's causing a lot of damage to the body, including sclerosis, thyroid, and many other adverse health issues.
So James, what has the response been to the new research that came out today?
The response has been great. It's good spin, it's good propaganda, and it's amazing coincidence they released it today, the day when we're delivering a petition of 8,000 signatures to Parliament. But so what? There's research from all over the world which shows that there are potential risks. And if there are potential risks, it is unethical to continue doing it. I'm calling on the government to allow Parliament to examine the facts independently and in an unbiased way. They have not looked at this since 1966. And that is an absolute scandal when it comes to something that affects every single West Australian.
A petition with the signatures of 8,000 West Australians calling for an end to water fluoridation has been handed in to Parliament for them to deal with. Michael Sawyer reporting for Undercurrent.
This weekend, Perth will host a European Business Expo to promote the trade between Australia and European countries. Jonathan Davidson spoke to the Hungarian Trade Commissioner to discuss trade relations.
Australia and Hungary had never enjoyed a trade relationship until very recently in January last year. Undercurrent interviewed the man responsible, Tomas Deutsch, currently working at the Hungarian embassy in Canberra. Why choose Australia for trade?
Australia, I just love the country. I've been here, I've been especially in Perth many times. I believe it is my 9th or the 10th visit in Perth. I was here at the early 90s, at the very beginning, at the Swimming World Championships. I used to train here. We had been here for a training camp, and I love the country. I speak the language. And I've been in the US. I spent 8 years in the US, and I believe that I can take advantage of my US experience and learn a little bit more about the Australian market.
So between those markets, what import and export opportunities exist between Australia and Hungary?
I believe that Australian businesses are overseeing the European market. Today, Europe is still the second biggest market for the Australian businesses. The Hungarian businesses are not as important as the European perhaps, because we're just a small part of Europe with 10 million people there. On the other hand, the Hungarian export is tenfold compared with the Australian one. So in Hungary we are doing very good if I look at the numbers itself, if I look at the numbers in details, I have to admit that the majority of the exports are coming from the automotive sector, because we are an automotive powerhouse and we have 40 OEMs working in Hungary.
You've placed a strong importance on investment. Are investment opportunities for Australian investors on par with those in New Zealand?
Yeah, the largest Australian investor today is the Goodman Group. They are expanding. We have some smaller investors from Australia as well. We have a building manufacturer from New Zealand also operating from Hungary. And as always, as everybody in the market we are looking for new investors. And the Hungarian government is supporting that. So we are trying to, that's one of the reasons why I am here. We are trying to provide, services and free of charge information for any of Australian companies interested invest into Hungary or the Central Eastern European region.
Do you expect to see a shared benefit between both nations?
Definitely. Both of us are. Both of us are coming from the developed part of the world, and it is difficult to compete with cheap labor, with the Asian markets, with the cheap Asian products. So both of us are trying to put more emphasis on innovation, for example.
So Australia, Hungary and Asia all benefiting from this, or is there kind of like a competition?
We are not directly competing with the Asian markets. We are far from them, and we have to admit that we are more expensive. On the other hand, again, we have quite a big market. We are the central part of Europe. So if somebody is looking for something more innovation, something like creativity, I believe that this could be a good market for Australian businesses.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
I'm Jonathan Davidson, and you're watching Undercurrent.
Thank you for watching Undercurrent. Don't forget to catch up with us online at wtvperth.com.au. Take care and we'll see you next week.